guys saw, as you might be able to tell by the title, this book is a review as well as a comparison to the film of Descendants by Kawai Hart Hemmings. It was originally published on May 15, 2007 by Random House. The Descendants is the story of Matt King, whose wife has been in a boating accident and is in a coma, terminally in a coma, going to die from the accident. Matt, for the first time in his life, has to deal with the fact that he has two daughters. He has 17-year-old Alex, who has she's overcoming a drug addiction, as well as Scotty, who has a lot of problems of her own, including idolizing a girl who is way too mature for her age. Early on in the novel, we find out that Joni, Matt's wife, has actually been in an affair before she got into her accident. And that's kind of where the story takes off. You find out that his wife is in an affair, she's in this coma, Matt has to deal with these daughters, he's a workaholic, he's a lawyer, and he's just never had to deal with being a father. And not only does he have to deal with a father, he has to deal with being a father whose wife has been cheating on him and is dying. Firstly, let's talk about the story. The story is really, really interesting. That's probably my favorite part about the entire book and film as a whole, is that it's a story not usually told, you know? Usually, stereotypically, I'm sure, it is the man who's cheating and it is the woman having to deal with the children, things like that. Very stereotypical. I'm not saying that is better, worse, whatever. I'm just saying that's kind of more stereotypical. You don't often hear a story told in this way, and I think that slight difference is what makes all of the difference with this book. The writing was really interesting. It wasn't too out there. The lexicon wasn't too hard to understand. It was good. I don't have too much more to say than that. I enjoyed it. I didn't feel challenged. I didn't feel like I was bored. Yeah, the writing it told the story in a way that it had to be told. The writing really came out actually in the characterization. The characters were all very real. Everything about this book just felt very, very real. From the characterization to the story, to the events, to the feelings. Everything felt very authentic. It wasn't sugar-coated because of the fact that that Joni was dying. You didn't feel sorry for her necessarily. You felt the same emotions Matt did, I think. It was kind of a roller coaster. I think this book had a lot to say when it comes to adulthood, when it comes to dealing with hard situations and taking care of children. I feel like it had a lot to say, and it said it very potently and very well and very eloquently. And overall, I gave the book 4 out of 5 stars. Now let's go on to the film, starring George Clooney, directed by Alexander Payne, and also starring Shailene Woodley, who, if you guys ever watched The Secret Life of the American Teenager, you were probably as surprised as I was that she was nominated for a Golden Globe. Well deserved in this film, but just coming from that show, you wouldn't believe it. I'm gonna be honest here, and I saw the film before I knew it was a book. I had no idea. I think I might have had a vague idea by the time I went to see it after I'd done a tiny bit of research, but I wasn't too concerned about it. As I said in my film adaptions video, it's not a huge thing to me reading the book first, because I do a great job of separating the two. So I went into this film not really knowing too much about it, and I think that was a great way of going about it. I thought George Clooney did an amazing job at being Matt King, and the one major difference, everything was very similar, even down to, writing. There were lines in the book directly in the film. The one major difference was that everyone was a lot more likable in the film. Maybe that's because it's George Clooney, but in general, Matt was way more, he was less of a dick, let's put it that way. He was less of a jerk in the film, but that's just how film has to be, you know? You don't want a main character that you can't relate to and that you're just sitting there like, oh, he just said that, really? His wife's dying, he just said that. So I think that was very, very necessary and done very respectfully in the film. Even the daughters were a lot more likable in the film. Everyone is just generally more likable, but not to the extent that you like all of them all the time. It wasn't changed. The characterization wasn't changed. It was just brightened up a bit. Sorry, I've kind of slipped back as I did this review. I loved the locations. It was an absolutely beautiful film. The music was absolutely beautiful. I've been listening to the soundtrack on repeat. And in general, the direction and acting was all very well done. I'm not entirely sure I understand why it was Oscar nominated. I'm not quite sure it was on the same par as some of those other films, but I do understand to a certain extent, and it's one of those films, the more I see it, the more I really like it. It's one of those books that I think is a very interesting read, but if you're totally not a huge reader, though I don't know why you would be watching this channel if you weren't, then seeing the film does the book justice, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying don't read the book, because I never want to advise people not to read books, but it does justice to it. Overall, I gave the film 4 out of 5 stars as well, and I just generally think it's a great adaptation and that you should experience it with your eyes and your ears and your other senses. Good. Let me know if you've read it or seen it or interested in doing either of those, and I'll see you guys next time.